Once upon a time, Albert Miller has discovered something that challenged every assumption about history of North Pennsylvania. Tucked beneath a sandstone overhang in southwestern Pennsylvania, this unassuming site has produced evidence that fundamentally challenges our understanding of when humans first arrived on this continent. The Meadowcroft rock shelter appears unremarkable at first glance, a natural alcove carved into a hillside overlooking Cross Creek. It's the kind of formation you might drive past without a second thought. But beneath its sandy floor lies a continuous record of human occupation that stretches back through time in ways that shouldn't be possible, according to established migration theories. When professional archaeologists began systematic excavations in the 1970s, they uncovered layer upon layer of ancient artifacts, stone tools, fire hearths, animal bones, and woven plant fibers stacked like pages in a history book that extended far deeper than anyone expected. Each layer represented centuries of human habitation, but it was the radiocarbon dates from the deepest levels that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. Some of the earliest evidence from Meadowcroft dates to nearly 16,000 years ago. This timeline places human presence in Pennsylvania thousands of years before the Clovis culture, which had long been considered the first widespread civilization in North America. The implications were staggering. If Meadowcroft's dates were accurate, it meant people were thriving in Pennsylvania while the continent was still emerging from the last ice age. The scientific establishment initially rejected these findings. Critics argued that the site must have been contaminated, that ancient carbon from nearby coal deposits had somehow infiltrated the archaeological layers. Multiple laboratories were brought in to verify the dates. Advanced testing methods were employed to eliminate any possibility of contamination, yet the results remained consistent. The evidence from Meadowcroft stubbornly refused to fit into accepted timelines. What makes the site even more mysterious is the sophistication of its earliest inhabitants. The stone tools recovered from the deepest layers demonstrate advanced knapping techniques and specialized designs that suggest these weren't primitive nomads struggling to survive. These were skilled craftspeople who understood their environment intimately and had developed sophisticated technologies for exploiting its resources. The artifacts reveal a complex society capable of long-term planning and resource management. Evidence of seasonal hunting patterns, sophisticated food storage techniques, and trade networks that extended across vast distances. These early Pennsylvanians weren't just surviving in a harsh post-glacial landscape. They were thriving in ways that required knowledge, organization, and cultural continuity spanning generations. Perhaps most intriguingly, the site shows continuous occupation for over 10,000 years. Generation after generation returned to this same shelter, rebuilding their fires in the same spots, using the same tool-making areas, following traditions that connected them to ancestors from the distant past. This continuity suggests not just survival, but cultural stability across time spans that dwarf recorded history. The mystery deepens when we consider how these early people arrived in Pennsylvania. If they were here 16,000 years ago, they couldn't have crossed the Bering Land Bridge during the commonly accepted window of migration. The ice sheets that blocked overland routes from Alaska wouldn't have opened until thousands of years later. This forces us to consider alternative migration theories that were once dismissed as impossible. Could these early Pennsylvanians have arrived by coastal routes, following ice-free corridors along the Pacific shoreline? Did they cross the Atlantic during the Ice Age, navigating from Europe when sea levels were dramatically lower? Or were there multiple waves of migration that brought different populations to North America at different times through different routes? The answers remain elusive, but the evidence from Meadowcroft continues to accumulate. Modern excavation techniques have confirmed the integrity of the archaeological layers. Advanced dating methods have verified the age of the artifacts. Each new season of fieldwork adds details to a picture that grows more complex rather than clearer. Standing at the edge of the shelter today, protected now by a modern roof and walkways, you can peer down into the exposed archaeological layers and see the compressed history of human occupation. Dark stains mark ancient fire hearths. Scattered stone flakes show where tools were made and repaired. Animal bones reveal the diet and hunting practices of people whose names are lost to time. The Cornwall iron furnace tunnels present an entirely different kind of mystery, one that blends industrial history with unexplained underground engineering. On the surface, Cornwall appears to be a straightforward piece of Pennsylvania's industrial heritage. The massive stone furnace complex, built in the 1740s, represents one of the finest examples of early American iron production. But beneath this well-documented industrial site lies a network of tunnels and chambers that defies explanation. The tunnels were discovered by accident during renovation work in the late 1800s. Workers digging near the furnace foundations broke through into underground passages that had no apparent connection to the iron-making operations above. These weren't crude mining shafts or simple drainage channels. They were precisely cut corridors with smooth walls and deliberate turns that demonstrated sophisticated engineering. As exploration continued, the tunnel network revealed itself to be far more extensive than anyone had imagined. Passages radiated outward from beneath the main furnace in spoke-like patterns, some connected to natural cave systems in the surrounding hills. Others terminated in carefully constructed chambers with niches carved into their walls. The stonework in the older sections showed techniques and precision that seemed advanced for the colonial period. What puzzled investigators was the clear evidence that some of these tunnels predated the iron furnace by decades or possibly centuries. The construction methods, tool marks, and architectural features in the deepest sections didn't match anything from the 18th century industrial period. Yet no historical records mentioned any large-scale excavation projects in the area before the furnace was built. Ground-penetrating radar surveys in recent decades have revealed even more extensive underground structures. Hollow spaces extend deep beneath the known tunnel system, some at depths that would have been extremely difficult to reach with period tools and techniques. The pattern suggests a planned underground complex, rather than the random excavation you'd expect from mining operations. Local folklore has long attributed the tunnels to various mysterious purposes. Some stories claim they were built by Native Americans as ceremonial chambers or storage spaces for sacred objects. Others suggest early settlers dug them as hiding places during conflicts or as secret routes between settlements. The most intriguing theories connect them to pre-colonial inhabitants who possessed engineering knowledge that exceeded what we'd expect from the historical record. The precision of the stonework in the older tunnel sections supports these more exotic theories. The walls are cut with geometric accuracy that would challenge modern construction techniques. Joints between stone blocks fit so tightly that mortar wasn't necessary. Drainage systems channel groundwater with engineering sophistication that demonstrates advanced understanding of hydraulics and geology. Modern attempts to map the complete tunnel system have been frustrated by collapses, flooding, and sections that appear to have been deliberately sealed. Each expedition reveals new passages and chambers, suggesting the underground network is far larger than surface evidence would indicate. The true extent and purpose of the Cornwall tunnels remain as mysterious today as when they were first discovered over a century ago. The most disturbing aspect of the Cornwall mystery isn't just the existence of these tunnels, but the systematic effort to hide them from public knowledge. When the site became a state historical landmark, most of the underground passages were sealed with concrete barriers and steel gates. Official explanations cited safety concerns and structural instability, but many researchers suspect the real motivation was to prevent further investigation into discoveries that challenged conventional historical narratives. Workers who participated in the sealing operations reported finding artifacts in the deeper chambers that didn't belong to any known period of local history. Stone tools that appeared far older than colonial settlements, carved symbols that didn't match any documented Native American traditions, and evidence of metalworking techniques that predated the iron furnace by centuries. These discoveries were quietly removed, and never made available for academic study. The few researchers who gained access to the tunnels before they were sealed described an overwhelming sense of antiquity in the deepest chambers. The air itself felt ancient, carrying scents of stone and earth that seemed disconnected from the industrial site above. Some reported acoustic anomalies, whispers and echoes that occurred in empty chambers where no sound source could be identified. Whether these phenomena had natural explanations or represented something more mysterious remains unknown. What makes the Cornwall tunnels particularly intriguing is their apparent connection to a broader network of underground passages throughout southeastern Pennsylvania. Local historians have documented similar tunnel systems beneath other colonial-era sites, often dismissed as root cellars or storage chambers, despite architectural features that suggest more sophisticated purposes. The pattern implies a coordinated underground construction project that spanned multiple locations and possibly multiple centuries. The Chickies Rock petroglyphs represent yet another layer of Pennsylvania's ancient mysteries, one that challenges our understanding of who lived in the region and what they were trying to communicate across the millennia. Along the rocky banks of the Susquehanna River, near Columbia, hundreds of symbols have been carved into the dark quartzite bedrock. These aren't casual graffiti or simple decorative marks. They're deliberate, complex designs that demonstrate both artistic sophistication and spiritual significance. The petroglyphs were first documented systematically in the early 1900s. Though local residents had known about them for decades, the carvings cluster along a 15-mile stretch of riverbank, with the highest concentration near Chickies Rock itself. The symbols range from geometric patterns and astronomical designs to human figures and animal representations that don't match the known fauna of the region. Dating these carvings presents the same challenges faced by researchers studying rock art worldwide. Without organic material embedded in the stone, radiocarbon dating is impossible. Stylistic analysis and comparison with dated artifacts from nearby archaeological sites suggest the petroglyphs could range from 500 to 5,000 years old. This uncertainty leaves open the possibility that multiple cultures contributed to the rock art over extended periods. The most puzzling aspect of the Chickies Rock petroglyphs isn't their age, but their apparent astronomical sophistication. Several panels contain circular designs with radiating lines that appear to track solar and lunar cycles. Stone alignments near the carvings correspond to significant celestial events like solstices and equinoxes. The precision of these astronomical markers suggests knowledge of celestial mechanics that require generations of careful observation and mathematical calculation. Some of the human figures depicted in the petroglyphs wear headdresses or carry objects that don't match the material culture of known regional tribes. Boat-like symbols appear repeatedly, despite the fact that the Susquehanna River system wasn't known for large-scale water transportation. Most intriguingly, several panels contain what appear to be maps or territorial markers that correspond to geographical features hundreds of miles away from the carving sites. The mystery deepens when we consider the petroglyphs' relationship to other ancient sites throughout Pennsylvania. The symbols and artistic techniques found at Chickies Rock appear at rock art sites across the state, often in locations that would have required extensive travel through difficult terrain. This suggests either a unified cultural tradition that spanned vast distances or contact between different groups that shared artistic and spiritual practices. Modern Native American elders who have studied the petroglyphs describe them as sacred markers that served multiple purposes. Some were territorial boundaries, others were spiritual messages intended for future generations, and still others functioned as astronomical calendars that helped coordinate seasonal activities. But even these traditional interpretations can't explain all the symbols or their apparent connections to distant locations. The Nittany lion legends present a fascinating intersection of ancient folklore and modern identity, where prehistoric spiritual beliefs evolved into contemporary cultural symbols. Mount Nittany, the long forested ridge that overlooks Penn State University, carries stories that stretch back centuries before European settlement. The mountain's name derives from Native American words meaning single mountain or protective spirit, reflecting beliefs about supernatural guardians that watched over the valley. According to Lenape traditions, Mount Nittany was home to a powerful mountain spirit that appeared as a massive cougar. This guardian protected the people of the valley from natural disasters, enemy attacks, and spiritual threats. The spirit lion was said to appear during times of crisis, its roar echoing through the valleys as a warning or call to action. These weren't simple animal stories, but complex spiritual narratives that connected the physical landscape to supernatural protection. The legend gained new dimensions during the colonial period, when European settlers encountered remnants of these traditions and adapted them to their own understanding of the landscape. Stories emerged of mysterious large cats seen on the mountain, creatures that seemed too intelligent and purposeful to be ordinary wildlife hunters reported tracking enormous paw prints that vanished without explanation. Farmers found livestock killed by predators that left no trace beyond the evidence of their supernatural strength. By the time Penn State was founded in the mid-1800s, the Nittany lion had evolved from ancient spiritual guardian to regional folklore figure students. Hiking the mountain trails shared stories of ghostly cats glimpsed in the moonlight and unexplained sounds echoing from the rocky outcrops. The legend provided a ready-made mascot when the university needed a symbol that represented both local heritage and fierce pride. But beneath the modern mascot imagery lies something far more mysterious. Mount Nittany itself demonstrates geological and archaeological features that support the ancient belief in its spiritual significance. The mountain contains numerous caves and rock shelters that show evidence of human occupation spanning thousands of years. These weren't casual camping spots, but deliberately chosen locations that suggest the mountain held special importance for successive cultures. Archaeological surveys have revealed stone circles, burial cairns, and carved symbols scattered throughout the mountain's forests. Many of these features align with astronomical events or geographical landmarks in ways that imply sophisticated understanding of both celestial mechanics and sacred geography. The mountain appears to have functioned as a ceremonial landscape where spiritual and practical activities intersected across multiple generations. The persistence of large cat sightings on Mount Nittany continues to fuel speculation about whether something more than legend lurks in its forests. While eastern cougars are officially extinct in Pennsylvania, wildlife officials still receive regular reports of large tan cats observed in remote areas. These sightings cluster around Mount Nittany and other locations associated with ancient spiritual traditions, suggesting either remarkable coincidence or the survival of something thought to be lost. The Monongahela Fort mystery represents one of Pennsylvania's most elusive archaeological enigmas, a major fortified site that may have existed for centuries before vanishing completely from the historical record. Unlike other ancient mysteries that leave behind physical evidence, the Monongahela Fort exists primarily in 19th century accounts and local folklore, making it simultaneously one of the most intriguing and frustrating puzzles in the state's prehistoric heritage. The Monongahela people occupied southwestern Pennsylvania, northern West Virginia, and western Maryland between approximately 1000 and 1635 CE. They built circular villages protected by wooden palisades and demonstrated sophisticated agricultural and trading practices. But according to early archaeological reports, they also constructed at least one massive fortified complex that dwarfed anything else attributed to their culture. Descriptions of this fort vary wildly depending on the source, but most accounts describe earthen walls forming multiple concentric circles with evidence of sophisticated defensive planning. Some reports mention moats or trenches filled with burned debris, suggesting the site experienced violent conflict. Others describe ceremonial areas within the fortification, implying it served religious as well as military purposes. The problem is, that no modern archaeologist has ever successfully located this fort despite more than a century of searching. Maps from the period when it was allegedly discovered are inconsistent and often contradictory. Landmarks mentioned in the original accounts no longer exist due to river channel changes and industrial development. The result is an archaeological ghost story, a major site that everyone talks about but no one can prove ever existed. What makes the Monongahela fort particularly maddening for researchers is how tantalizingly close they've come to finding it. Ground-penetrating radar has identified anomalous patterns in several locations along the river valley. Aerial photography reveals geometric earthworks hidden beneath forest canopy. Local farmers occasionally uncover post holes and fire-stained soil that match descriptions of the legendary fortification. Yet every promising lead ultimately fails to produce the massive complex described in those 19th century accounts. The search has taken on almost mythical proportions among Pennsylvania archaeologists. Graduate students write dissertations attempting to triangulate its location using historical documents and geographical analysis. Metal detector enthusiasts scour river bottoms, hoping to find artifacts that might point toward the lost site. State archaeological surveys continue to investigate promising locations, driven by the tantalizing possibility that one of North America's most significant prehistoric fortifications might still lie hidden beneath farmland or forest. Recent technological advances have brought new hope to the search. LiDAR mapping can penetrate forest cover to reveal earthworks invisible from the ground. Magnetometry detects subsurface features that indicate human construction. Satellite imagery analysis identifies crop marks and soil discoloration patterns that suggest buried structures. Each new tool offers the possibility of finally solving a mystery that has frustrated researchers for generations. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the Monongahela Fort mystery isn't whether it actually existed, but what its existence would mean for our understanding of prehistoric Pennsylvania. If the descriptions are accurate, the fort represents a level of social organization and military planning that exceeds anything we've attributed to the region's ancient inhabitants. It suggests populations large enough to support massive construction projects and threats serious enough to justify unprecedented defensive measures. The timing of the fort's alleged construction coincides with a period of increasing conflict throughout the Ohio River Valley. Climate change was affecting agricultural productivity. New diseases were spreading through trade networks. Aggressive migrations were displacing established populations. In this context, a massive fortified refuge makes perfect sense as a response to mounting pressures that would eventually destroy the Monongahela culture entirely. The giant bones of Bradford County present perhaps the most controversial and politically sensitive of Pennsylvania's ancient mysteries. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, newspaper accounts and local historians documented the discovery of unusually large human skeletal remains throughout the northern counties. These weren't isolated incidents or misidentified animal bones. They were systematic findings that suggested the presence of a distinct population characterized by extraordinary physical size. The most detailed accounts come from Bradford County, where construction and farming activities regularly uncovered burial sites containing individuals who appeared to have stood 7 to 9 feet tall. Local physicians examined the remains and confirmed their human origin. Newspaper reporters documented the discoveries with photographs and measurements. Museum curators collected specimens for further study. Yet today, virtually all of this evidence has vanished from public view. The pattern of discovery was remarkably consistent across multiple sites and decades. Workers digging foundations would encounter stone-lined burial chambers containing skeletal remains of exceptional size. The bones showed no signs of disease or deformity that might explain their unusual dimensions. Burial goods found alongside the remains suggested these individuals held high status within their communities. Some graves contained copper ornaments, elaborate pottery, and stone tools of superior craftsmanship. What makes these discoveries particularly intriguing is their geographical distribution throughout Pennsylvania and neighboring states. Similar giant remains have been reported from New York's Finger Lakes region, Ohio's mound builder sites, and burial grounds throughout the Great Lakes area. The consistency of these reports across such vast distances suggests either a widespread population with distinctive physical characteristics or a cultural tradition that emphasized the burial of exceptional individuals. The systematic disappearance of this evidence raises disturbing questions about academic censorship and institutional cover-ups. Skeletal remains that were once displayed in local museums have vanished from collections. Photographs and documentation that appeared in newspapers have been removed from archives. Researchers who attempt to investigate these historical accounts face bureaucratic obstacles and denial of access to relevant materials. Professional archaeologists dismiss most giant bone discoveries as hoaxes, misidentifications, or exaggerations by untrained observers. They argue that apparent giant skeletons result from normal-sized remains being distorted by soil conditions, reconstruction errors, or deliberate fraud designed to attract public attention. This skeptical stance has become so entrenched that serious investigation of the phenomenon is considered career suicide within academic circles. Yet the sheer volume and consistency of historical accounts makes wholesale dismissal difficult to justify. Newspaper reports from the period include detailed measurements, witness testimonies, and professional evaluations by medical doctors. Local historical societies maintained careful records of discoveries. Museums acquired and displayed specimens for decades before they mysteriously disappeared from collections. The controversy extends beyond simple questions of physical evidence to broader issues of historical narrative and cultural sensitivity. Native American traditions throughout the northeastern United States include stories of ancient giant peoples who lived in the region before current tribal populations. These oral histories describe conflicts between ordinary-sized humans and larger inhabitants, often ending with the giants' defeat or departure. Modern tribal leaders have expressed concern that investigation of giant remains could be used to challenge their ancestral claims to the land or support fringe theories about non-Native American populations in prehistoric times. This legitimate worry has created additional barriers to objective research, as scientists must navigate complex political and cultural sensitivities while attempting to understand the historical evidence. The Goshen Mystery Tunnels represent one of Pennsylvania's most physically accessible, yet completely unexplained ancient sites. Located beneath the rolling farmland of Chester County, these underground passages were discovered during construction work in the 1960s. Unlike other mysterious tunnel systems throughout the state, the Goshen tunnels remain partially open to exploration, allowing researchers and adventurous visitors to experience their enigmatic architecture firsthand. The tunnel network consists of precisely carved stone passages that extend for miles beneath the surface. The corridors are tall enough for adults to walk upright and wide enough for two people to pass comfortably. The stonework demonstrates exceptional skill, with joints so tight that water doesn't penetrate even after decades of abandonment. Drainage channels carved into the floors direct groundwater away from the main passages, showing sophisticated understanding of underground hydraulics. What puzzles investigators is the complete absence of any historical context for these tunnels. No maps, deeds, or construction records mention their existence. Local families who have owned the land for generations have no knowledge of who built them or why. The stonework techniques don't match any known period of regional construction, yet the passages show clear evidence of human engineering rather than natural cave formation. The tunnels connect to a series of underground chambers carved into the bedrock. These rooms vary in size, from small storage areas to large halls capable of holding dozens of people. Some chambers contain stone benches, carved directly from the bedrock. Others feature niches that may have held torches or ceremonial objects. The largest room includes what appears to be an altar or ceremonial platform elevated above the surrounding floor. Carbon dating of organic materials found within the tunnels has produced conflicting results. Some samples suggest construction during the colonial period, while others indicate much greater antiquity. The inconsistency might result from contamination by more recent materials, or it could reflect multiple periods of use and modification spanning centuries or millennia. The purpose of the Goshen tunnels remains completely mysterious. They don't follow patterns typical of mining operations, storage facilities, or transportation routes. The ceremonial features suggest religious or ritual use, but no known spiritual traditions in the region required underground sanctuaries of this scale and sophistication. Some researchers propose they served as hiding places during periods of conflict, but their elaborate construction seems excessive for temporary refuge. Local folklore offers various explanations for the tunnel's existence. Some stories attribute them to early Quaker settlers who needed secret meeting places during periods of religious persecution. Others suggest they were built by Native Americans as winter shelters or sacred spaces connected to seasonal ceremonies. The most exotic theories propose connections to pre-Columbian European visitors or lost civilizations that possessed advanced engineering knowledge. Modern exploration of the tunnels has revealed additional mysteries. Acoustic anomalies create unusual echo effects in certain chambers, suggesting the spaces were designed with sound transmission in mind. Magnetic compass readings become erratic in specific locations, indicating the presence of metallic deposits or electromagnetic anomalies. Some visitors report sensory experiences that seem disconnected from the physical environment, though these phenomena resist scientific documentation. The Pennsylvania stone spheres represent perhaps the most geographically widespread of the state's ancient mysteries. These perfectly round stone balls, ranging from baseball-sized to several feet in diameter, have been discovered throughout Pennsylvania's river valleys and mountainous regions. While natural geological processes can create spherical stones, the quantity, distribution, and precision of Pennsylvania's examples suggest human manufacture for purposes that remain completely unknown. The spheres appear in archaeological contexts spanning thousands of years. Some have been found in association with archaic period campsites dating back 8,000 years. Others come from woodland period villages occupied just centuries before European contact. This temporal distribution suggests that sphere making represented a continuous tradition, maintained by successive cultures over extraordinary periods of time. What makes Pennsylvania's stone spheres particularly mysterious is their remarkable consistency. Despite being found across vast distances and time periods, the spheres maintain nearly perfect roundness, with variations of less than 1% from true spherical geometry. This precision would be difficult to achieve even with modern tools, yet these objects were apparently created using only stone implements and patient handcrafting techniques. The geographical distribution of the spheres follows patterns that don't correspond to known trade routes or cultural boundaries. Clusters appear in remote mountain valleys that show little evidence of permanent habitation. Others emerge from river terraces in areas that were heavily populated for thousands of years. Some locations have produced hundreds of spheres, while nearby sites of apparently similar importance contain none at all. Attempts to determine the sphere's function have produced numerous theories, but no definitive answers. Some researchers propose they were tools, perhaps used for grinding pigments or processing plant materials. Others suggest ceremonial purposes, viewing them as ritual objects connected to astronomical observations or seasonal ceremonies. The most exotic theories propose technological applications, suggesting the spheres served as components in machines or devices whose operation we don't understand. The craftsmanship required to produce these spheres represents a significant investment of time and skill. Creating a perfectly round stone ball using only primitive tools would require weeks or months of careful work. The fact that so many were made suggests they served important functions that justified the enormous labour investment. Yet no use-wear patterns on the spheres provide clues about their actual application. Recent discoveries have added new dimensions to the stone sphere mystery. Several sites have produced spheres that show evidence of deliberate internal modifications. X-ray analysis reveals hollow chambers, metal inclusions, and geometric patterns carved into their centers. These internal features would have been invisible during normal use, suggesting symbolic or spiritual significance rather than practical function. The Kinzua Bridge petroglyphs represent one of Pennsylvania's most recently discovered ancient mysteries, brought to light only when the historic railroad viaduct collapsed during a tornado in 2003. The destruction of this iconic landmark revealed a hidden gallery of rock carvings that had been concealed beneath the bridge structure for over a century. These petroglyphs challenge our understanding of the region's prehistoric inhabitants and raise disturbing questions about what other ancient sites might be hidden beneath Pennsylvania's industrial infrastructure. The carvings were discovered on the rock faces of the Kinzua Creek Gorge, previously inaccessible due to the massive steel trestles that spanned the valley. When the bridge collapsed, researchers gained access to cliff faces that had been protected from weathering and human interference since the viaduct's construction in 1882. What they found was an extensive collection of symbols, figures, and geometric patterns that represented one of the most significant petroglyph discoveries in the northeastern United States. The artistic style and subject matter of the Kinzua petroglyphs differ markedly from other known rock art traditions in Pennsylvania. The figures include elongated human forms, complex geometric mandalas, and animal representations that don't match the regional fauna. Some panels depict what appear to be astronomical observations, with star patterns and celestial alignments that suggest sophisticated knowledge of seasonal cycles and lunar phases. Carbon dating of organic materials associated with the carvings indicates they were created over an extended period, with the oldest examples potentially dating back 3,000 years. This timeline places their creation during the late Archaic period, when the region was supposedly occupied only by small bands of hunter-gatherers. The sophistication and scale of the petroglyphs suggest a level of social organization and artistic tradition that exceeds what archaeologists have attributed to the period. The Kinzua petroglyphs include elements that appear in rock art traditions from the American Southwest and Great Plains, regions that were supposedly isolated from northeastern populations by vast distances and cultural barriers. These stylistic connections suggest either long-distance trade and communication networks or migration patterns that haven't been documented through conventional archaeological evidence. Most intriguingly, several panels at Kinzua appear to depict technological objects that don't match any known prehistoric material culture. Circular designs with radiating spokes resemble wheels, despite the fact that wheeled vehicles weren't used in pre-Columbian North America linear patterns, with cross-hatching look remarkably similar to woven textiles, though such sophisticated weaving wasn't attributed to regional populations until much later periods. The discovery of the Kinzua petroglyphs has forced researchers to reconsider how many other ancient sites might be hidden beneath Pennsylvania's industrial landscape. Railroad construction, mining operations, and urban development have altered the state's topography so extensively that countless archaeological sites have probably been destroyed or concealed. The Kinzua example suggests that some of these lost sites might still be recoverable if industrial structures are removed or collapse naturally. Current efforts to document and preserve the Kinzua petroglyphs face significant challenges. The exposed rock faces are now subject to weathering and vandalism that they avoided for over a century. Funding for comprehensive documentation and protection measures remains limited. Most troubling, some of the most significant panels show signs of deliberate damage that occurred after their discovery, suggesting that not everyone wants these ancient messages preserved for future study. These 10 ancient mysteries of Pennsylvania represent more than isolated puzzles or curiosities. They form a pattern of evidence that challenges fundamental assumptions about prehistoric North America. Each site forces us to reconsider the sophistication, antiquity, and cultural complexity of the people who lived here long before European colonization. Together, they suggest that Pennsylvania's ancient past holds secrets that could revolutionize our understanding of human history on this continent. The evidence is undeniable, yet the explanations remain frustratingly elusive. Advanced engineering in underground tunnel systems that predate known construction techniques, astronomical knowledge embedded in stone carvings that exceeds what we've attributed to prehistoric populations, skeletal remains that suggest physical characteristics unlike any documented human populations, artifacts and symbols that appear thousands of years before they should, according to established cultural chronologies. What connects these mysteries isn't just their age or their defiance of conventional archaeology, but their persistence in challenging everything we thought we understood about ancient America. From Meadowcroft's impossible dates to Cornwall's vanished tunnels, from Chickies Rock's astronomical precision to the lost Monongahela fortress, these sites refuse to fit into neat historical categories. They represent evidence of knowledge, capabilities, and populations that existed in Pennsylvania long before our textbooks say they should have. Whether these mysteries will ever be fully explained remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. Pennsylvania's ancient past holds secrets that could rewrite the entire story of human civilization in North America. The answers lie buried beneath our feet, carved into stone and hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to ask the right questions.